ಅಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮ ಯೋಗ ಶ್ರೀ SachchidAnandEndra Saraswatee Swamiji, Hole Narsipura, Karnataka. This is the second book we are seeing from this publication in the English series. After a broad outline of Vedanta, this is the second one, Adhyatma Yoga. Here we have seen several sessions. Today yesterday we had seen Shravana, listening. Today, Manana, we will continue. Reflection. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Dr. Krishnamurti Shastri, Tampe Punacha, Karnataka. So, in Adhyatma Yoga, a book by Sri SachchidAnandEndra Saraswatee Swamiji, Hole Narsipura, Adhyaatma PrakAsha KAryAlaya, Hole Narsipura, Karnataka. Here, after listening or Shravana, next is the Manana. After that is Nididhyasana. So, what is Manana? Reflection. As previously mentioned, the direct means for the self-knowledge are described by Sri Shankara in his Brihadaranyaka Bhashya 2.4.5 as follows. Therefore, the self, my dear Maitreyi, should be realized, is worthy of realization, or should be made the object of realization. It should first be heard of from a teacher and from the scriptures, then reflected upon through reasoning. So that is Shravana, and then Manana, and then steadfastly meditated upon, that is Nididhyasana. This is a brief account of these three means, and among these three we have already dealt with the first one and the last, that is Shravana and Nididhyasana or Adhyatma Yoga. Adhyatma Yoga and Nididhyasana are same, we have dealt. Shravana we have dealt. Now we will see reflection or Manana. For the present, the middle one, namely Manana, has to be dealt with. Sri Shankara has pointed out that Manana should be done through reasoning. Here, the word reasoning commonly connotes logic, inferences, conjectures, and tarka. In the case of the self-knowledge, it should be kept in mind mere logic or pure reasoning according to the Western philosophers, or inferences as per Eastern Tarkikas is not at all useful to the aspirants. According to Sri Shankara's Bhashya, there are three kinds of logic. The first is dry logic, which contradicts the common experiences in practical life. For if one says a non-poisonous water snake is like a poisonous snake like cobra, the water snake does not thereby become poisonous. Or if one says a snake is like a water snake, the snake does not thereby become non-poisonous. Snake or cobra, it does not. If you tell cobra is like a water snake, the cobra does not thereby become non-poisonous. That is according to Sutra Bhashya 2.2.10. There are some examples of mere logic as used in algebra, like if A is equal to B and if B is equal to C, then evidently A is equal to C. These examples are of mere logic, are based on certain thought processes only, but no one knows for certain what exactly these letters A, B, and C denote or stand for, or whether they are equal or not, etc. Without considering the facts as they are, to join two types of thoughts and to draw a conclusion thereby is the nature of this kind of logic. These two kinds of examples belong to the class of dry logic, called in Sanskrit as kutarka. The second category of logic is called as pramana tarka in Sanskrit, meaning the inference based on sense perceptions. For example, if one sees smoke on the top of a mountain, he infers that there must be fire. Here, the existence of the smoke is established on the strength of the sense perception, and the existence of the fire is inferred. This is deduced on the strength of one's previous experience of having seen the smoke emanating from the fire. This kind of logic is useful to some extent in our daily life. The Indian Tarka Shastra or system of logic called as Prachina Nyaya and Navina Nyaya, etc., are built up stupendously with their innumerable rules and regulations as well as many maxims. In this field, the disputant who relies on stronger grounds of evidences is capable of vanquishing his rivals. In this system of logic, if the fundamental perception on which the later inferences have been drawn is found or proved to be wrong, then the whole range of inferences built on it become null and void. For example, when one has apparently seen smoke on the top of a mountain and later he has realized that it was not smoke at all, but it was only a whirlwind or fog, etc., then all his previous inferences stand cancelled. So also, if the evidences or maxims are proved to be incorrect, then also all his reasonings do not hold water. Sri Shankara points out mainly three defects of logic in general, and they are: 1. No finality is ever reached because a logician may confirm that his is the real truth, but in due course of time another more powerful logician may refute it, and the later may stand refuted by another later, and so on. And it is impossible to determine the final truth by bringing together in one congregation all the past, present, and the future logicians and decide once for all. Second point, there is always the possibility of mutual contradiction among the logicians. Third one, there is always the possibility of self-contradiction in every logician's contentions. In Sutra Bhashya 2.1.11, Sri Shankara has elaborately dealt with these defects. The third is called as Shrauta Tarka, or reasoning based on the Shruti utterances. This Tarka or reasoning is to be taken here in this Manana or reflection on the self. To some extent, the Pramana Tarkas or the reasoning of the second category mentioned above also may be taken insofar as it is not inconsistent with the Shruti utterances. But predominantly, the aspirant has to rely on Shrauta Tarka only. Sri Shankara has sounded a warning about this. It was also argued that by enjoining reflection over and above hearing, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad shows that logic also is to be honored. But through such a subterfuge, empty logic cannot find any scope here, for logic conforming to the Upanishads is alone resorted to here as a subsidiary means helping realization, according to Sutra Bhashya 2.1.6. The significances of Shrauta Tarka are as follows. A. The Shrauta Tarka relies on the intuitive experience of one's own real nature as the self, which is based on universal acceptance. B. Taking two partial intuitions and joining them and thereby drawing a conclusion on the firm ground of intuitive experience. C. So, this reasoning is beyond the ken of duality, meaning it is neither concerned to the sense perceptions, the mental conceptions, or intellectual inferences, nor is it concerned to the thought constructs of time, space, and causation, etc. It should be evident to a discerning aspirant that there is no scope whatever for any opposition or contradiction to the conclusions drawn on the basis of this Shrauta Tarka, because this reasoning is beyond the ken of duality. These types of reasonings are exemplified by Sri Shankara in his above quoted Bhashya portion, and this is of this kind since the states of dream and wakefulness contradict each other. The self is not identified with any one of them, since the individual soul dissociates itself from the world in the state of deep sleep to become one with the self, which is existence. It must be the same as the transcendental self. Since creation has originated from Brahman, and since the law is that the cause and effect are non-different, creation must be non-different from Brahman, and so on. Sutra Bhashya 2.1.6. Here we have to discuss about these three types of reasoning. In the first kind, it is said that the waking state and the dream state inevitably cancel each other when each of them appears. The self, who is the substratum of these two states, is not circumscribed by them. This is the significance of the first reason. Here, one should remember that the waking state includes the three planes, namely the divine, the material, and corporeal. That is, which are described in the body of the book on Adhyaatma, page number 2 and 3. And the concepts of time, space, and causation, as also all the creatures, along with the enquirer's me notion or I notion. Thus, the total phenomenon of the waking state should be taken as a whole. So also the dream state is to be considered. When the aspirant observes this process of discrimination about both the states, then naturally he loses his identification with his ego and takes his stand in his true nature as the self. Otherwise, these two phenomena of the waking and the dream states cannot be assessed in a comprehensive manner. By this process of discrimination, when one, that is viveka, sadasad viveka or discrimination, when one discerns that his own nature is untainted by these two states, that is Jagrat and Swapna, or awaking and dream, then he cognizes the essence of these two false appearances is the self alone. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the sage Yajnavalkya has taught this truth to King Janaka, affirming that the nature of the self is untainted, self-eliminating, and non-dual. These three conclusions have been drawn from the above reasoning. Here, the intuition of the waking state and the dream state have been taken as two partial intuitions, and after joining them on the basis of the common denominator of the real nature of the self and showing their mutual cancellation, the conclusion has been drawn about the true nature of the self in the above said manner. So, at the end of this reasoning, the aspirant is established in his essential nature of non-dual Brahman. To get this result, only the Shrauta Tarka is used, but it will be evident to the aspirant that this kind of Shrauta Tarka is beyond the ken of intellect as well as the concepts of time, space, and causation. This is the special feature of Shrauta Tarka, and this kind of Tarka is used in Katha Upanishad 3.1.4. In the second kind of reasoning, two partial intuitions of the waking state and the deep sleep state are taken, and from them the conclusion has been drawn that the nature of the individual soul is ever free from mundane or material qualities. From the standpoint of waking world, every individual feels that I am enjoying pleasure or suffering misery. This belief is due to wrong identification with the not selves, that is, from the body to the ego. When he cognizes that the pleasure or the suffering are eliminated by himself, as he is the witness of these two kinds of concepts, at once he discerns that I free from these two. This kind of acute or sharp discrimination is very difficult to be adopted by the common aspirant. A common man, though he might have a gigantic intellect, understands this type of discrimination to be a mere inference because he has no introvert nature as well as the capacity to cease his identification with his own ego. But one who is a qualified student may understand this truth in its proper perspective and significance. If he finds any difficulty in taking a stand on his true nature as the self, then the intuition of deep sleep is to be taken as the criterion for his guidance. In deep sleep, every human being is clearly free from all mundane sufferings and he is rid of his own ego. Now, the two types of partial intuitions are to be joined here in the following way. In the waking state, though a person suffers from the mundane calamities, as he is the witness of these sufferings, he has no taint of them, and in deep sleep, he is free from all mundane calamities owing to the absence of the adjuncts like the body, the mind, the intellect, and the senses, which are false appearances included in the waking state. These two intuitions have been joined here, and a conclusion is drawn to the effect that the nature of the self is ever free from the mundane sufferings. This is the significance of the second kind of reasoning. The third kind of reasoning pertains to the Bhashya statement. Since creation has originated from Brahman, and since law is that the cause and effect are non different, creation must be non different from Brahman, and so on. In this regard, we have to discuss in detail topics like 1. According to modern science, around a nucleus, minute things like protons, electrons, and neutrons revolve, and this conglomeration of an atom is the basic unit for all things in the world and hence the creation. To the question where from do the things like the nucleus, the protons, and the electrons are produced, the scientists have no answer and they explain it away, saying that they are there naturally. Sometimes nowadays they say these are all from a single particle called God particle or Higgs boson particle nowadays. They have found out. So the same particle can be converted into any atoms, hydrogen or helium, neon, argon, krypton, anything. That is one thing, that is God particle or Higgs boson particle today, nowadays. It was not invented that time when this Swamiji wrote this book in 1953. So then naturally, so that time it was saying it was natural presence, electrons, neutrons, protons. During that time, science was telling it is naturally they are present. Then naturally, for these things to function, the concepts of time and space are required. Then, if they are further questioned as to how time and space have come into existence, then they dismiss it away, saying that these questions are concerned to metaphysics. In other words, they admit that these questions are beyond this sphere. Next, let us consider how Western philosophers like Kant and Einstein answer this question about time and space. According to Kant, time and space are mental concepts, and without these concepts, there is no functioning of the mind or the sense organs. The external objects are related to time and space, and so our sense organs report about them relatively with the concepts of time and space. The mind functions in 4 ways: 1. Unity of idea; 2. Quality; 3. Quantity; 4th. Causation. Hence, we cannot know the thing in itself. That is how the world and the mind are there without these concepts of time and space. And according to Einstein, these are all relative things, and he conjectures that apart from this phenomenon of the world, which is totally in the relative field, there must be no noumenon, which is absolute, about which he has not drawn any definite conclusions. According to the Einstein, the Eastern philosophers, 1. The Kapila Sankhya say that the primordial matter of the universe, which is called as Pradhana, Prakriti and Avyakta, unmanifested seed form of the world, is the cause for this universe. 2. Atoms are the cause for the universe, say the Vaisheshikas. 3. Vaisheshikas, Nayayikas and Patanjalas agree with the point that the Lord or Ishvara is required to create the universe from the atoms or from the Prakriti. This Lord is quite separate from the world as well as the souls. 4th point, many religions say that God has created this universe and He is the sustainer and the destroyer of this universe, and that He is quite independent from the souls as well as the universe. 5th point, the Buddhistic view about the universe is that it is only a mental creation like a dream and there is nothing real here. So they assert about the essenceless nature of the universe, the soul and God, and this is called as nihilism, that is Shunyavada. There is nothing beyond this world. These are all brief accounts of the views of the Western and the Eastern philosophers. Now let us consider the Vedantic view of creation. First, one has to divine that the concepts of infinite time, space, and causation, and all the multiplicity are to be included in the word creation. Sri Shankara explains this in his Sutra Bhashya as follows: this universe is manifested through nama and form, that is, name and nama rupa, name and form, that is associated with the diverse agents and experiences that provides the support for actions and results, having well regulated space, time, and causation, and that defies all thoughts about the real nature of its creation. Sutra Bhashya 112. To determine any truth, Vedanta relies on a comprehensive view of life and applying this principle to the problem of creation. Vedanta guides the aspirants in the following manner: the entire creation is restricted to the waking state only, Jagrada Avastha, and this waking state emerges from the self, is sustained and dissolved in him when the waking state disappears. Hence, it is said in Vedanta that the self or Brahman is the cause of the universe. Here, the word cause is not used in the ordinary sense. In our daily life, the cause is concerned to the past and the effect is concerned to the present. So, the causation seen in the world inevitably requires the time factor. But when we consider the question of creation, then the words like cause and effect are to be interpreted in a different way altogether. Hence, in Vedantic parlance, the word cause means reality and the word effect means the false appearance of that reality. To explain, there is no separate existence for the effect apart from the cause. Moreover, the effect is an imagined thing and hence is only an apparent name and dealing. For example, in the case of a wooden chair, the chair has no independent existence apart from the wood which it is made of. The idea of the chair and its dealings are, in the ultimate analysis, imagined on the substance of the wood. So also the relation between the world and Brahman. It is to be understood here that the world or the universe as Brahman is real, but world as such is unreal. This truth is revealed by Sri Shankara in his Sutra Bhashya as follows: as the spaces within pots or jars are non-different from the cosmic space, or as water in a mirage is non-different from a sandy desert, since they sometimes appear and sometimes vanish away, and as such their nature cannot be defined, even so, it is to be understood that this diverse phenomenal world of experiences, things experienced, and so on, has no existence apart from the Brahman. Sutra Bhashya 2.1.14. For this purpose, Sri Shankara has declared in the third type of reasoning quoted above as: since creation has originated from Brahman and since the law is that the cause and effect are non-different, creation must be non-different from Brahman. This is also confirmed by Sri Shankara in his Brihadaranyaka Bhashya by saying that in life, if a thing cannot be perceived apart from something else, the latter is the essence of that thing. According to the guidance of this Shauta Tarka, that is, what is that? In life, if a thing cannot be perceived apart from something else, if there is nothing cause for something, then the thing what we are seeing or we are considering, the latter is the essence of that thing. According to the guidance of this Shauta Tarka, taught or used by Vedanta texts and is based on a comprehensive vision of life, if an aspirant inquires into the cause of the universe, he will find at the end of his inquiry that he has automatically falsified the appearance of the universe, and at the same time he has intuited the non-dual nature of Brahman as his own self. This is the benefit accruing from this kind of Shauta Tarka. Now the conclusion. To know the secrets of Vedantic teachings, one should necessarily know the following four fundamentals. 1. The intuition of the self or the eternal witness of the ego. 2. The method of superimposition and rescission, which is called as Adhyaropa and Apavada. 3. The difference between Vastu Tantra and Karta Tantra sadhanas and their results. Fourth, the difference between the absolute or transcendental viewpoint and empirical viewpoint, Paramarthika Satya and Vyavaharika Satya, which are called in Vedanta as Paramartha Drishti and the Vyavahara Drishti. The intuition of the self or the eternal witness and the difference between Kartrutantra and Vastutantra are dealt with briefly in Adhyatma Yoga and Shravana portions. Therefore, here 4. The method of superimposition and rescission is used throughout the Vedantic literature, particularly in this Manana portion. The discrimination about the states like waking, dream, and deep sleep, and the determination about the cause of the universe, etc., are based predominantly on this method. For example, the states or creation are things superimposed on the true nature of the self owing to ignorance. And when the inquiry is completed, the aspirant discerns that all these are Brahman in their essence. By this conviction, when the previous set of wrong notions have been removed, then this sublation of the wrong concepts is called as rescission or apavada. At the commencement of the teaching, whatever things are accepted to be true for the time being from the standpoint of the superimposition, that is called as empirical viewpoint or the Vyavahara Drishti, while at the end of the teaching and enquiry, all the previous wrong notions are removed on the strength of the absolute viewpoint, and this final negation of all superimpositions taught by the Shruti or the Guru in the form of Neti, Neti, or not this, these types of teachings are called as Paramartha Drishti or absolute viewpoint. These fundamentals of Vedanta, which were not known to the spiritual world till recently, were revealed by our revered Swamiji Shri SachchidAnandEndra Saraswatee, the founder of Adhyaatma PrakAsha KAryAlaya, Holinarasipura, Hasan district, Karnataka, as a result of a rigorous and intensive research into Shankara Bhashya for over 50 years. So here we conclude this Adhyatma Yoga. The next book, again Adhyatma, about Adhyatma Yoga by Devarao Kulkarni, we will continue in the next session. Thank you one and all. Hare Rama.